Hello, hello, hello. This is Adrienne Bergen. This is the Ageless Traveler. We have another bonus episode for you. This time it's about understanding wine barrels. Well, why do you need to know that? We've had such a terrific food and wine podcast with Stefano of Angelini Winery and Estates that we began to talk with him about the wine barrels. When I go to France, and I love to go on European waterways, I've been through Bordeaux and I've been through Champagne. And so every time I meet a vintner and they want to teach me how to be a real connoisseur of wine, well, not so sure that'll ever happen, but they tell me about the wine barrels. And so I specifically asked Stefano to give us a little dissertation on what we ought to know about wine barrels. And it's fascinating, just as fascinating as wine glasses and even the wine itself. So give a little bit of a listen. And now I'm sure that you learned something and that you enjoyed that. So I do want to ask you just about the barrels. I was very interested when I went on the European waterways trip, and that was to Burgundy. Some of the barrels were actually brought from the U.S. Others were made right there, and it depended on the grapes, depending on what they wanted to accomplish. So what does Angelini do with regard to the barrels?
Let me give like a quick introduction first. Yes, when we hear that a wine went through barrel aging, we always assume certain things. The truth is that there are many variables, even in barrel using, because it depends on the size, on the type of wood, on the thickness of the wood, on the toasting or non-toasting, if it's French oak or if it's Livonian oak. There are so many characteristics and variabilities that go into choosing the barrel. Because as you can imagine, small barrels have more contact, have more surface of wine in contact with oxygen, so they might lead to premature oxidation. The type of wood, French oak is more porous than Livonian oak, so it will enhance even more this oxygen exchange. And the age of the barrels. New barrels impart more flavor than old barrels. So for us, which I consider very traditional wineries, we only used very big barrels and very old barrels because we don't want the barrel to overpower the wine. We want the wine to taste like wine, like fruit. We don't want to have vanilla clove sensation in our wines. So we use large barrels. So the surface in contact with the oxygen is very small compared to the core of the barrel. And old barrels. So they had like a 75 years, some of them. So they've been used so many times that really they don't impart any flavor. They're just a vessel for the wine to breathe and develop. And they're very thick. Once again, this is like a barrier with the outside, with the oxygen. So I think the barrels are a very touchy subject. Burgundy, for example, they use a lot of French barrique, like they're very small and they're made with French oak. They tend to have a more rapid oxidation of the wine. That's why they do very short aging, because they might be very dangerous for the wine. On the other side of the spectrum, we have a winery like us. We age our wine for 8 years in barrel, which is a very remarkable time. And because we know that the way we use our barrels, they're not going to let any oxygen, or at least a very controlled amount of oxygen. That said, yes, I think that really comes into play, as you were saying correctly, actually, what kind of wine you want to achieve, what you want to make. Usually traditional regions, they tend to have these very old barrels because they're neutral. They really don't change the flavor of the wine. And on the contrary, when you go to Napa Valley, you have a lot of new barrels because they like the kind of flavor. They want the vanilla, they want the cinnamon, they want the clove. So it's also, even that is a part of the culture of the wine region.
Yes, because yours is a very traditional culture. And the idea is to keep the consistency, the continuation for decades, for generations. I'm sure you've enjoyed that, and you enjoy all of our podcasts and newsletters. So I'm going to ask you to give a little back by going to our show notes and making a donation. $35 will get you a free book of mine called The Retirement Income Explosion, or you can give more or less. It doesn't matter. We really want to support kids who, like myself, lost a family member, in my case, my father, very early in life. It really throws you for a loop, and anything that you do can help us all learn more about grief, work through our grief, and help others work through their grief. And one of the fabulous podcasters that's supporting this charity with me is Jane Leader. She's an award-winning author, Her guests take a deep dive into the joys and challenges of being an older woman. The name of her podcast, you'll love it, Older Women and Friends, Stories of Aging Well. It sets the record straight, dispels myths, explores the many contributions that older women make, and older women know a thing or two about living with a keen sense of wonder and a biting appreciation for the gift of longevity. So really take a real deep dive into your perception of aging and take a look at this wonderful podcast. You'll find everything about Jane at JaneLeder, JaneLeder.net. And that's what happens when friends support friends in something like our podcastathon for good grief. And for everybody else, please take a look at our Travel Tuesday newsletter, join our salon on Facebook, and never stop traveling.